So this week's episode of Darwin's Game definitely had some surprises I wasn't expecting. Last week I was definitely kind of like thinking there was probably two different characters and maybe it'd be a brother and a sister, and seemingly that's exactly what it was, but I was not expecting apparently that when you enter Darwin's Game, there is maybe if you make a wish of what you want your ability to be, it can come true, and it's why I'm actually believing that this isn't like a split personality disorder. I think it could definitely be that this girl and her brother share the same body, and while that would be a split personality slash imaginary friend, depending on how you want to look at it, it kind of feels believable in the context of Darwin's Game, and that's insane by itself. But then just to see how everything transpired over this very action-packed episode, this was a very enjoyable episode, I have to say. I mean, I really like the idea of this brother and sister relationship. One has the ability to basically control water, the other obviously can freeze it. And basically, I thought just the way they were directing it for so long, I was convinced that it was two separate people in two separate bodies, because every time we focused in on them, even though they looked similar, I mean, twins can look similar, so that wasn't really that big of a shock to me. What I was seeing, just the way they were directing it, it definitely made me buy into two separate people in two separate locations. So when basically the punchline comes and you see just the same character that we're focusing in on basically just switch a personality and just shatter the ice, I was like, that's really interesting, because as of everything we've seen so far, everything's been pretty normal. Like, obviously there's some psychopaths who want to just kill and basically enjoy the thrill of this game, but for the most part, everyone seemed very normal with just like an extra ability applied to them. And then we see that apparently that the sigil could actually be a separate thing, which kind of makes sense, because if you basically made your wish to basically when you join this game that you want to see your dead brother, I think it would make sense based on everything that we've seen in this anime up to now. I think that makes it such a devastating combo, but applied to a girl who has no interest in fighting and a brother personality who isn't actually a psychopath but just wants to protect his sister, which if this actually is the brother, it kind of makes sense based on the fact that he ended up dead and wanting to protect his little sister or something like that. I think that's just such an interesting concept, and the fact that she joins the clan as basically the janitor, you know, do the laundry, do some cooking, things like that, I think that's going to be really interesting, because the idea of Kaname's clan is something I'm very excited to see how it's going to grow, and also how the different personalities will kind of link up and maybe conflict with one another. Because as we've seen with Shuka's a very different character 2 days ago from where they started off. Like, she's willing to let people join in on the clan rather than just killing anyone who potentially could kill her. And the fact that we get her, like, reason for joining the game as well was like the icing on the cake for this whole clan kind of dynamic. The fact that her parents were brutally killed and she joined Darwin's Game for the sole reason to basically get revenge, I think is it's an interesting narrative. It's not like the most crazy thing we've seen in Darwin's Game to date, but still, the fact that we have a character who is so insanely powerful, who basically her entire purpose is to just get revenge, and how Kaname is someone who, even if he doesn't know if he wants to kill the creator of the game, he also is very pissed off at the existence of Darwin's Game. I mean, he had no interest in joining, and now he's trapped there, and basically is forced to kill unless he wants to be killed himself. So the fact that these two kind of link up in such an interesting way with a clearly growing romance relationship, I think it's just like the perfect way to keep them bonded. But though, on the topic of their like growing romance, it's interesting to me because I did predict the CPR thing last week, because that's just kind of like where it would go. We saw she was drowning. He's going into water. I mean, they clearly were building up for that CPR kiss, and then, no, I wasn't kissing you. I was actually happy with how they handled it, though, because usually when that happens, it's like just that embarrassment, and then they kind of move on. One side clearly wants more, the other side is playing hard to get, basically. I like how immediately she's like, no, I'm gonna kiss you now for real. I was like, okay, that's actually interesting, because usually they beat around the bush for 2 seasons before anything starts happening, and you can definitely tell there's some chemistry there. Maybe it's just because of the heat of the moment, you know, their lives are in danger and they just want some form of connection, sure, but still, there clearly is something growing there, and I'm glad they're not just dragging along with the will they, won't they. I mean, they already had their first kiss, and people are already assuming that they're dating, even if Kaname's like, well, I'm not really dating her, but, you know, at the same time, when I woke up on my first day after meeting her, you know, she was naked in the bed, and now she's kissed me, so maybe he's just kind of reluctantly accepting that they may be in a relationship, which is kind of charming. The only weird thing about that entire sequence was the fact that he mentions how cold the water is and how they will freeze if they stay in, and then they just have a casual chit-chat while they float there. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Get out of the water and then start chatting. At the very least, they did start swimming eventually, but still, I was like, what the hell are you guys doing? You clearly said it's freezing water. Why are you just sitting there? Which was something, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy just the conflict that was happening. I mean, they're clearly building up for this big clan with their grenades and their machine guns to go invade the hotel. We know we were getting that, and we even get a pretty great glimpse of it by the end of the episode, and then obviously leading into next week. But still, it was nice to see that conflict and how it kind of got resolved and then built a really satisfying clan, I have to say, because you want a mix and match of personalities and abilities so you can basically combat any scenario. And right now, they have a great arsenal. Even if this kid doesn't want to attack people, still, there's going to be plenty of sequences where needing to be able to control water or freeze water is going to be incredibly handy, especially when you're on planet Earth and most of the Earth is basically made out of water, right? So I'm really excited to see, like, once they escape this event, depending on if they all get out alive. I mean, the hotel situation with the whole plant guy definitely seems like he's probably going to die, but it also feels like he was never really a part of the long-term clan where the others were, but still, it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with it. So I definitely really enjoyed that content, even though some of it I definitely predicted. They also twisted it where, you know, the whole CPR kiss, you think you know exactly what you're getting, and then they actually just like, no, we're actually trying to build up something here, which was a refreshing feeling. But then again, Darwin's game in general has been pretty refreshing with its battle formula, which generally just continues to evolve with each week. Hell, apparently you can make a wish when joining Darwin's game, and that can become your power. They just keep finding new ways to make it all the more interesting, and I like the idea that now that the second wave of rings have basically landed, I like how it's basically the level of hardness and how it links up to the final objective, where yeah, you can get the rings and collect them, but that will be like your extra reward. But the main thing is you want to, you know, seal the deal. You want to get the true objective and end this event before you sacrifice your life. In terms of the whole hotel situation and how one man is like really about to sacrifice his life, I think it does make sense, especially if your daughter basically has a heart condition that needs a lot of money. It totally makes sense that you want to go up against this entire clan. Obviously, it's basically a suicide run, and obviously, as you know, it's clearly mentioned, if I was your daughter, I would much rather you come home to me rather than just losing my father, having no idea what happened to him. But it does make sense from his point of view. He needs the money, and while the others could abandon the rings, he clearly can't. And I mean, he did pretty damn well, I have to say. He wiped the floor with most of this squad. But going up against someone with flame abilities, I doubt he's going to have the same level of success he clearly just did, mopping the floor with the general goons of this building. I'm actually really impressed by how much they incorporated into this episode without it feeling like rushed or jarring in the slightest. Like, we literally get the concept of this like split personality and being a real brother and real sister inhabiting one body with different abilities. That was all well and good in how she joins up with the clan because neither one of them was a psychopath, which I have to say was a very nice blessing in disguise, because usually when you have like a twin dynamic, like one's super twisted, the other's like, no, I don't want to hurt, and then basically gets manipulated. I like how the brother's side wasn't like he wanted to kill, but rather just wanted to protect his sister, which was a very nice dynamic, I have to say, and very surprising. You of course get the whole hotel situation setting up for next week as well, reuniting Kaname and Shuka and just kind of like building the clan to be even stronger. Who would have thought that coming into this random event that they had no control over would actually build the clan that I think, like many of us, expected to be towards the end of the first season before we would even really get a clan. We would be Shuka and Kaname just kind of like chilling and maybe having some random partnerships here and there, but not really building a full-on clan by such an early stage in the anime, because honestly, usually with these types of situations, you usually see it by the end of the first season, not by the midway point, because usually they want to keep the focus on like the central duo or the central trio, make sure you're well connected with them because they don't know how to write multiple characters in such a large setting and to kind of give everyone an even playing field. But Darwin's game is doing a good job. I actually feel like I understand these characters' personal motivations, why some characters want to kill, or at the very least I understand their drive to kill and why that's basically like, hey, you know, you can put anyone in this clan you want, I'm gonna kill this leader though. Like, it just kind of makes you feel like you understand the personal motivations to enough of a degree where like no matter what happens and how things are kind of like mixing and matching and creating this big clan, it just feels rewarding and as if it's not going so fast that we can't follow and it's not just a nameless face joining the crew. I definitely think Darwin's game is doing something that more series should probably take note of. There was a time in anime where like these types of animes like battle royales and things like that were very common, and it kind of felt like every single one was the same show with a different skin and maybe a different ability here or there. But Darwin's game, even though the idea on surface level feels familiar, at this point in time, I really can't compare it. Like, even Kaname himself and how he's like that nice guy but not wanting to kill, it doesn't feel like it's just going down that generic path of like everyone's going to become his friend. The reason characters are becoming friends or acquaintances or allies, things like that, it makes sense based on what they're saying and why they fight in Darwin's game. Like, he's never recruited anyone who just wants to kill for the thrill of it, right? Everyone is either doing it for money, doing it for revenge, but that revenge relates to like a bigger thing that's kind of like, I understand where you're coming from, even if it's not maybe the best option. It just feels like everything is hitting the proper notes, and I'm really enjoying it for that reason. This show may not be the flashiest of the season, but I definitely think The Flash, in terms of its world building, it definitely makes up for any shortcomings in the visual department, and I continue to enjoy this. Very unique, and I thought it would be a very generic show at start, just maybe a generic fun show, but no, it's become a very unique show by all rights of the definition. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, be it for source material readers, anime originals like myself, do let me know. Remember to leave a like if you did enjoy, and be sure to subscribe if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.